Hello, everyone. My name's Houston, and welcome to the Tangential YouTube channel. Really excited to kind of do our first video with you guys. Hope you guys will enjoy our content. Really excited to let you know about us and what we stand for here, and hope you guys find it entertaining. So with that, let's kick off. All right, so what I'm going to do is share a PowerPoint that I have created for our first video. I am a PowerPoint nerd, just because it helps me kind of keep my thoughts on track. You may be asking yourself, why is this called Tangential? And we'll get to that a little bit. We'll get to what we're about. We'll talk about the how we're going to kind of operate here. We'll talk about the why. What's the purpose behind this? Why were we even, why am I even creating this? All of that will wrap up in kind of this first video. Then we'll finish it with a couple of questions at the end that will allow you to kind of understand what we're about a little more holistically. So the what we're going to do here on Tangential is talk about three main topics. That's going to be business, travel, and sports. On my next slide, I'll kind of talk through why you should listen to me. If you think you should or not, I'll leave that up to you. I'm what I would consider expertish in these three categories. Certainly not the resident expert above everyone, but enough where I feel like I can expand people's knowledge bases and help them learn more about these three topics. It's called tangential because I have been told in the past that my communication style is very tangential and that I'll kind of dive into stories or different details, whatever it may be throughout the course of a presentation or conversation, just because my mind's running a million miles a minute. So I apologize in advance for those that it's kind of tough to keep up, but that's kind of who I am. And I've tried to kind of consciously tamper that a little bit, but have not been, holistically successful. And so tangential is just a part of me. I see the good in it as well as the bad in it. And a lot of times the tangents that I go on, lead to, funnier stories, kind of more details that normally wouldn't have come out, that provide some better context around what we're talking about. And it's led to a lot of new ideas for me as well, where you kind of stumble down a path you may not have gone through if you didn't go on some of these tangential hiatuses and tangential kind of pathways. And so, for me, I'm going to be truthful on here. It's going to be very anecdotal, very conversational, as you could probably already tell. I'll mention it a little later, but this isn't going to be research based. This is all based on my experience. When we talk about a topic in business or in travel or in sports, or answer a question you guys may have, it's going to be based off what I know, my experiences, and kind of what I've learned through my time, within all three of these topics. And then lastly, I'm a newbie to this stuff. I have never created a YouTube channel. If I'm being quite frank, had a little bit of extra time outside of my normal, day-to-day, job and role. And so I thought I'd do something that I thought was fun. And so I hope you guys have fun with this as well, because that's what it's about. So we can share some laughs and kind of expand our knowledge bases a little bit as well. So with that, why should you listen to me? Why, that would be the first question I would be asking if I was watching this video. Houston, who the heck are you? And why should I care what you have to say? Well, here's a couple of, quick bullet points, maybe kind of talking through some accreditation of, why I think that I'm at least an expertish in these three topics. So from a business perspective, I got my BS from an Ivy League school a number of years ago. Really enjoyed my experience there, was able to learn a lot. I do not use a lot of the stuff that I learned in school in business. I would say less than 1%. But what it did teach me is how to write really well. And it taught me how to kind of formulate and think through problems. So discernment was a big piece of kind of that Ivy League education, and really also how to prioritize time. So those three things were huge coming out of college. I did get my MBA from a top 20 program here in the last couple months. So just completed that. That was fantastic experience. I was able to go in person. I would urge people to try to do it in person if you can. I got a lot more out of it than I think I would have. Online, we did split, the 2 years in class as well as online because of COVID, but I got a lot more out of the in-person version of that. And then currently I run a medium size firm. So I'm the president, I guess the head honcho, El Prez. So if something goes awry, I'm the neck that gets choked. And I am responsible for around 600 to 800 people on average throughout the year as we, continue to grow our business and try to do great things in a niche industry that we're in. From a travel perspective, a lot of my travel has been domestic, so I won't be able to speak too much to international travel. But I have hit 41 out of the 50 states in my time on this beautiful planet, and I've hit pretty much every major U.S. city. There's a number that I haven't, like Boston, Seattle. Those are really the top two that come to mind. But I've hit pretty much everything else and either spent some time with work or with leisure, hanging out in those towns. And then for 2023 specifically, so the first 12 weeks of the year, it is now April 2nd. I have traveled 10 out of those weeks. So I've hit LA twice. I've hit Phoenix. I've hit Las Vegas. I've hit San Antonio, Dallas twice, Little Rock, South Dakota, Detroit, and then Atlanta twice. And then I'm going to San Diego here in 2 weeks. And then immediately after that, going to hit New Orleans back to Atlanta. So, I mean, when it comes to travel tips and how to make it through airports and how to survive on the road, I do have a ton of experience there. Um, and I've enjoyed a lot of my time. I've seen a lot of beautiful places, met a lot of cool people, and unbelievable stories that come out of that, and excited to share a lot of those things with you. And then lastly, from a sports perspective, I played football, basketball, and baseball in high school, and then was able to play football and baseball in college. Now, I will tell you from a football perspective, I did not see the field a single second of a game in my 2 years on the football team. But I did walk on the baseball team and played 3 years and got a lot of time pitching out on the mound. There is a certain individual who started in front of me my second year on the football team, and he was so unbelievable that I never was going to get a shot. So I decided to quit and walk on the baseball team, which was a perfect decision for me, and probably for the football team too, because they didn't need me around. They needed to, ride their new horse, which was a guy that was awesome and got some NFL time and CFL time as well. And then lastly, I'm an avid sports fan, so I follow a lot of NHL. Follow the EPL, so English Premier League, obviously NFL, NCAA basketball, NBA. I can really dive deep when it comes to certain tactics and things like that, just because I played a lot of sports, but also talk about it holistically, how leagues are trending, how rule changes are impacting the game. And so very interested to kind of talk through with guys and gals here on the channel if you have any questions or want to talk through those things as well. Awesome. Why now? So I mentioned it a little earlier. I just finished my MBA program, and I'm kind of searching for what's the next thing for me. So I still have my 9 to 5 job, but outside of work, I kind of found myself in a rut. Well, not really a rut, but my wife and I just sitting on the couch watching Netflix, binging TV shows, watching movies, and I kind of missed like the engagement that I had with my MBA, where I'd come home, I'd have something that I knew I had to do. It was tough. It was not easy by any means. I mean, you're adding an extra 20 hours, 15 to 20 hours of work onto a normal work week. So a lot of weekends, a lot of night work, but it was something that I enjoyed because I knew I was working towards something, and I'm kind of missing that. And so I was hoping that this would be something that would allow me to kind of reinvigorate myself and hopefully invigorate some other people into kind of going out and doing new things and learning stuff that they maybe wouldn't have come across if they didn't tune in. And so that's really me and why I'm doing this now. The purpose is really just to provide insights, give as much information as I can, do it in a fun manner, make it conversational, and coming out of this, hopefully, even if it touches a handful of people, that's great. If it touches thousands, great. We'll kind of see where it goes from here. So really excited to kind of jump into to the new endeavor here. All right, how is this going to work? So initially, I think I'm just going to take questions from you guys. So today I've got 3 questions lined up, one in each of the 3 categories. So business, sports, and travel. Got them from my wife. So I'm going to answer those, and then we'll kind of post it, see what goes from there. And then any more questions you may have, be happy to answer them. They're going to be anecdotal, as I mentioned earlier. It's going to be a conversationalist style. So I don't want to make it like a true presentation. Again, I just put some slides together because it's easier for me to keep my mind together or keep my thoughts together. But I don't want to make it a straight boardroom or executive presentation. I want to keep this open to everybody. Haven't really thought too far about podcasts, may do some interviews here and there. Haven't really thought about live streaming. Really just want to kind of get it kicked off and do something instead of continuing to think about it, actually just do it, and then see where it takes us from there. So that'll really be what you can expect from a how perspective. And then, as I mentioned, let's jump into three questions. So my wife gave me three questions. I really appreciated them. Took a couple of minutes to kind of, get my thoughts together. And this is kind of what we got. So the first question she had from a business perspective is, what advice would you give someone who is looking to advance their career? So there are a number of things that go into this. The first thing I would mention is think about your growth path. Like, there is a conscious decision that needs to be made on which of these two paths you would like to go. So everybody, for the most part, unless you are in an entrepreneurial adventure, starts at the bottom in some sort of young pro. You're a yo pro, some young professional entry level role. At that point in time, it's really important to learn about three buckets. Learn about your company specifically, learn about the market you are in, and then learn about the position that you are in as well. So like you can add value to the company who is competing in the market. So whether you're in, retail or IT, or whether you're in, bio or whatever it may be, understand that market really well. Learn as much as you can, soak up as much information as you can, talk to people around the office that know more than you, and find a mentor. That is extremely important. Somebody you can trust, somebody that knows the business and knows the market. Then learn about the culture. How does it work here? If I want to progress, who are the what are the political spheres I need to penetrate and get in with, understand how things and decisions are made in terms of my progression. How do they promote here? What is kind of the timelines they're looking at? What are they looking for? And that lastly brings to your own role or position. What value can I add in the role I'm currently in? As you do that, you will kind of progress and normally, elevate yourself a little bit here and there to a tenured IC, which is an individual contributor. At that point in time, you're the people that the Yo Pros look to. So after a year, 2, 3, whatever it may be, now you're the go-to person within your own department or your organization. So when people are coming to you, show them that same gratitude that hopefully someone showed you, that graciousness, so that you can teach and learn and continue to progress the next group of people behind you. That goes a long way. If your manager, your exec kind of sees those things and that you're looking to grow others within the business, that is the quickest way I've ever seen to be able to progress up into higher roles. If you can grow others to succession plan A, to get yourself out of there so you have someone to backfill you, but also that you're adding value to the business and kind of exponentially growing your value through others is really important. Now we come to a crossroads. So you can see on the left, we have the leader path. On the right, we have the SME path. You need to determine kind of where you fit on this fork in the road. Do you want to manage people and manage managers, or do you want to be the resident expert on a specific role or function within a business? So again, from a manager role, everyone kind of understands this for the most part. You start managing individual contributors and eventually manage managers. This is kind of the route that I took. I kind of wanted to be more of a generalist instead of like a architect or like a accountant or a doctor, even like someone that is just so good at a specific thing. I think of James Anders, who is like the guy that does all of the UCL Tommy John surgeries. He is the resident expert. The best players in baseball go to him every single time they have a UCL issue because he is the best. He is the subject matter expert on that surgery specifically on their elbow. Well, that's a route you can take, or you can go the route of learning about leadership, learning about management, and getting the best out of people in your specific organization and market. And that's kind of what I chose. And so then you're talking about how to lead. You're talking about how to manage. You're looking at the metrics and you're looking at the people, and how do you tie those two things together to get the best out of your group so that you can obviously win in the market that you're participating in. And then once you become an executive, then you're really talking about the vision and the strategy. So we're looking 5 years out, we're looking 10 years out. We're determining where we want to be and what we got to do to bridge it back to today so that our managers can drive that execution to get us on the track to hit that 10-year goal or that 5-year goal. On the right side, the SME route, that's really where you're getting certifications, continued learning. You're going back to school, whatever it may be, to be the best in a specific function, whether it's web developing, like I said earlier, finance, accounting. There are a lot of different things you can do to get better in those functions. Okay. And once you've really made that decision in your fork in the road, then there's only two things, at least in my mind, I'm making it very simple, that matter. It is your work output. And a lot of people, I think, get bogged down by the fact of they look ahead or they look forward instead of looking down. I've actually gotten in trouble with this in my career as well, where I was looking so forward on what I wanted to be in a year, where I wanted to be in 6 months, that my work started lacking, and it actually hurt me. And luckily, I had an individual, a leader at the time, come talk to me and say, "Hey, Houston, this is something that we're seeing. I think this is because you're looking too far ahead instead of down. So look down at your work, understand what you do to drive value, and then do it to the best of your ability. If you're doing that and you're peaking up every once in a while, just make sure you're on track and talking to the right people to make sure they know you want to grow. That is a very good recipe for success. I'd probably say it needs about 75% looking down, 25% looking up. It's just a high level kind of rough number that I think works for me. And then the second component to that is honestly taking stretch assignments, getting visible. So if your work is visible and you are doing good work, then someone at a level that can make a decision will see it. You want to kind of understand the political spheres of your organization. You want to understand where you can add the most value. And if you marry those two things up, where you're doing really good work, you're taking on extra work from a stretch perspective, and like impacting the business outside of just your normal day-to-day functions. And then you're in with the right political spheres, the people that can make decisions and want to help you grow, then you're going to be in a really good spot to do so. Again, that is a very high level overview. We could dive in and have a full video of 25, 30 minutes just on this. But I thought that that's a good first question for my wife. So thank you to her for kind of jumping us off and walking us through a cool little exercise there. Second, from a travel perspective, what is a place you have visited and loved that you didn't expect to? So I put two on here, cheating already. First one is Mitchell, South Dakota. I was there maybe a month and a half ago. I don't know if I'll ever go back, if I'm being completely honest, but while I was there, I had a fantastic time. I have put a picture of the world's only corn palace, which is, no lie, a palace made out of nothing but corn husks. And that is, Mitchell, South Dakota's claim to fame. There's only like 5,000 people that live there. I was expecting to be, absolutely bored out of my mind. I was there for a week for work, but actually had a fantastic time. I'll quick story, tangent number one here. So I kind of went in on a Sunday just so I didn't have to be rushed because we had an early start Monday. I got in at like 2 p.m. and I was like, all right, it's a small town. Let me go find this corn palace because I had researched it. And that's, they market that thing all over the internet. Ended up finding it in the middle of town on Main Street. And there was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people walking inside while I was driving past it. I was like, what the heck is going on at this place? So I thought it was a museum that people were just flocking to. I guess they got a new corn frickin', exhibit or something. That's what I was thinking. I don't know, like, Corny the corn cob was there doing some sort of magic show. I had no clue. So I park and walk in, and it is a women's basketball game. It's actually a basketball arena with like a stage for plays that I guess they host like performing arts things and stuff. I have no idea. So I ended up watching like a D2 basketball game, or might have been D3. I don't even know. It was South Dakota Wesleyan versus some random team. Every single player on both teams was from South Dakota. So obviously, they must have been a local team or local-ish team as well. And I was just enamored. I mean, there was at least 1,000 people there. Now, it wasn't a sellout crowd by any means. This thing probably fit, 2,000, 3,000 people, but there was probably 1,000 people in there, and they were all in on South Dakota Wesleyan, legitimately on the edge of their seats. Every shot, every foul call, they were yelling at the ref. I mean, I was insanely enamored with the fandom of this South Dakota Wesleyan women's basketball team. And the team was playing great. I stayed for the first half, and then I was like, all right, let me get out of here and go see the rest of the town. But I mean, they were raining threes. They were up like 17 at half, just absolutely dominating on the glass, dominating with sets. Whoever their coaches has been there forever. They had won a couple league championships or something, but they were running great sets, dude. Like great motion offense, great down screens, moving without the balls, curling in, give and go. Like just a nice, like fundamental basketball offensive array of plays and I guess just overall mindset. So I appreciated that a lot and had a good time hanging out with the South Dakota Wesleyan fans there and got to see them. I assume they got the win that day. I didn't follow up. Probably should have done that. Anyways, besides that, there were a ton of hole in the wall, good food spots, like nothing that would absolutely knock your socks off, but really good food and fantastic people. Every single place we ate at, the people were awesome. Like legitimately the nicest people, cared about where we were from. One girl was named Ireland at this local steak. Her name was literally Ireland. She sat down and like had a beer with us. I hope I'm not getting her fired, but like she literally sat down and had a beer with us. She was so nice, like the nicest girl ever. I think she went to South Dakota Wesleyan too. No idea. Maybe she was at the game earlier and was in a good mood. Have no clue. But like she was fantastic. The town was fantastic. If I'm ever in South Dakota, I will stop by again because I truly had a great time in that town. Shout out to those people. Shout out to the women's basketball team for South Dakota Wesleyan. And shout out to Ireland and everybody that made our dinners and lunches so great. And then secondly is Kansas City. Let me start off on a negative. This is another tangent. So I think we're at 2 now. Let me mark that. 2 tangents. The Kansas City airport is the worst airport I've ever been into. Like O'Hare is obviously terrible. That one's up there. I really don't like DFW. Dallas is pretty bad. But this airport in Kansas City, it's like semicircle shaped. There's like 3 semicircles. You can't get to certain food. You have to go out of security to get to another food place. It's old. It's like low ceilings. Everybody's cramped in. You have to like walk around half the semicircle to get to like the Airbnb or to get to like the Uber place or get your Lyft. I mean, it's an absolute mess. I did not enjoy that at all. It's also 40 miles north of the city. I guess they were anticipating major growth and like the city would grow out there, but like it hasn't. And it's just a mess, dude. It is a terrible, terrible airport, very high up, if not number 1 on my worst airports list. But let's not take away the city itself, great town. Power and Light District, so much fun. There are bars, there's live music, there's cool restaurants. There's a huge basketball arena, even though they don't have a professional basketball team or even really a college team that's in Kansas City. It's obviously Kansas is in Lawrence, and then Kansas State, I believe, is in Manhattan, which is not super close to Kansas City. But it's just an awesome time. Lindsay and I went there, I think twice, and just had a blast hanging out in the Power and Light District. There's this other like shopping district that has a ton of like outlets and just some cool stuff over there, some really nice entertainment. It's a little more of like your corporate stuff. Like I kind of have on this picture here, Chipotle and Bar Louie. So those are 2 corporate kind of entities. But they have a ton of great barbecue, ton of great food, lot to do. We really enjoyed it and didn't expect to have such a good time. So that was a really nice time. Haven't made it back since I did live in Missouri for a while. And so that's why my wife and I went out there. But yeah, would definitely go back to Kansas City. Obviously great football, and the baseball team was great back in 2015 when they won it all. I think it was 2015 or so, but I haven't had a ton of success since. But it's a cool town. Really enjoyed it. Great food, great atmosphere. So I'll definitely tell you guys to get out there if you have a chance. And then lastly, let's go to sports. Who is your favorite sport athlete of all time? So we got Greg Maddux on here, and let's just start with this stat because it's one of the craziest stats ever in any sport. I mean, look at this, 20,000 batters faced. 310 of those batters saw 3-0 counts. 177 of those were intentional walks. So less than 150 3-0 counts out of 20,000. I mean, are you kidding me? Let me pull up my calculator. Like, what is that? Call it 150 divided by 20,000. Almost, almost a percent. Less than 1%. I mean, that is insane. Insane. And one more tangent here. When I was interviewing coming out of college, um, there was a group of us, like 8 people interviewing. We were in a waiting room and we had to go, we did a number of, assessments and like writing things and, interviews throughout it. It was like a full day thing. And then we had to cap it off with like a 5-minute presentation. And the only thing they told us is tell us about your biggest role model. And so I'm going, eight out of 8. So I hear, one person goes in, they come back. Hey, who'd you talk about? Martin Luther King. All right, cool. Number 2 goes in, they come back. All right, who'd you talk about? Mahatma Gandhi. All right, sweet. Number 3, they go in, they come back. Who'd you talk about? Harriet Tubman. All right, cool. Number 4 goes in, they come back. George Washington. I mean, it's like all of these like presidents and figures and I mean awesome people like that you would obviously want to be your role model. And then I go in and I'm like, I look up to all those people and care about them, but like it's hard for me to like make a connection there, just because it's so big. Like their aura and like the things they did were so huge, and it was hard for me to kind of always tie myself to like the gravity of the stuff that they did. And so for me, I went with Greg Maddox. So I literally stood in front of a group of directors and VPs and said, look, my role model is Greg Maddox. And here's why. Greg Maddox did not have all the talent in the world. He certainly had a lot of talent, but not the most talented pitcher there ever was. But that dude had grit. His nickname was the Mad Dog. And he worked his butt off day in, day out to be the best pitcher that he could be. And he was by far the greatest pitcher probably within that time. Maybe, you think of like Pedro Martinez was fantastic, but he was top 3. And, obviously Schmaltz was on his team as well as Glavine, but he was up there in terms of one of the best pitchers during that time and is a certified first ballot Hall of Famer. And this stat is just a ridiculous stat. And so I walked through how his grittiness, that mad dog mentality, resonated with me because I certainly have, a breadth of talents that I've been, given. But I've also had to grind, man. And like, there are more talented people than me out there. And I've just, been trying really hard to give it my all and do the best I can and make the most of the talents that I've been given, just like this man did. And so he's always been an inspiring individual for me. And, luckily I was able to get that job and then, moved up a little bit throughout that company before I jumped ship and kind of continued my career elsewhere. But Greg Maddox got me an interview and got me through that interview. So I appreciate to him and appreciate all of his hard work because he truly has been a role model to me. And he's my favorite athlete. His 2-seam fastball, mix it in with that curveball that he had. I mean, just unbelievable. And obviously the ability to kind of control his pitches and hit the strike zone there is fantastic. So thank you, Greg. And with that, we'll kind of wrap up here. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I have no idea if I got 1 person on here, 0 or 100 or 1,000. Who cares? At the end of the day, if one person took one thing away from this, that is all that matters to me.